Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 600. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of You-Know, the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying. We've been recording like we've been living through a pandemic for years now. So says the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
It did dawn on me. I'm like, we don't record together in the same room and haven't for years. Did we know? On this episode, Jim and I are going to be talking about Titans United, number 1, and Justice League, number 67. We also have some chat about conventions in a pandemic, which is interesting because we're heading into convention season, and this is a little bit of a different time. We are proudly supported by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
You know what I love to say, 50% off, and we've got a couple of them. All-Star Superman, the deluxe edition hardcover, 50% off, only $17.49. And we also have the Anointed Sandman hardcover, volume 1. Now, this is Sandman 1 to 20, but it's anointed with page-by-page, panel-by-panel commentary explaining the history, references, hidden meaning, and other behind-the-scene details of Sandman. This is also 50% off, only $24.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I love getting deals on books that I missed. Batman Black and White, the recently released series, has been put together in hardcover. $49.99 regularly, 42% off, only $28.99. If you've never read Batman Black and White, these are high-quality stories, and can't recommend any of the Batman Black and White stories that have been released over the years enough. Hardcover collection is a great way to go. Batman Hardcover Volume 4, The Cowardly Lot, $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. Jack Kirby's The Fourth World Omnibus now has a new printing. So if you missed this hardcover, $150 hardcover, 42% off, only $87. This is the way to get it. Get it at these discounts. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, as we kick off this recording, I want to wish you a happy belated Batman Day. It was yesterday as of when we're recording this. Some cool stuff came out of Batman Day. One of the neatest things is the Batman audio adventures that came from HBO Max. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to any of it. I listened to the first 2.5 episodes yesterday, and it was just neat having something new come out for Batman Day that was different. But audio on HBO Max was kind of a shocking thing for me. Full cast and a very impressive cast that is behind the scenes running this thing. So it was cool to see something put out of this caliber to celebrate Batman Day.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to any of them, but that's kind of neat that they're doing it.
So the premise of it is, for anybody listening who hasn't had a chance to listen to why it's worth checking out, it's a kind of like an anthology almost in the way it's constructed, like a radio broadcast or a news broadcast where you're getting snippets of stories that are going through. Some of them are fully acted, where it's like told from Batman's perspective. In other cases, it's told from an onlooker's perspective. Some cases, it's told from reporters who are giving stories on a radio show. The narrator, it's almost like a radio show style presentation in it. There's commercials that are Gotham-related commercials. That some of them are
nice.
Some of them are quite funny, and it's like. The Gotham transit system is not something necessarily you're going to want to be going on. But it was really great. It's well put together. It's high quality. So it is something, don't dismiss this as something that you don't want to listen to. It really is a full cast, beautifully put together drama with some surprising voices in there that do an amazing job. I really was impressed by this. So it's why I wanted to shout it out here. Also, we got coming up DC Fandom, which it looks like it's going to be a 4-hour event What I don't know from that is, are there going to be those extra, like your ability to kind of choose your own adventure type of thing? And on top of that, I'm very anxiously watching this because any form of outreach, this is a lot of how gaming companies have been reaching out to audiences now because of the fact that we have a lack of conventions, or we have conventions, but there have been so many restrictions on them, that I'm glad to see DC taking this media approach of giving us this day that's coming up that's going to be Fandom. We can get celebrated. They actually got shirts and stuff available. I bought some because I'm excited for this. I think I love these kind of outreaches. As a gamer, I love like when Sony does a drop or Nintendo does a drop or something like that, and we get these specialized outreaches. So I'm glad to see DC's continuing this. I hope that it's a full multimedia focus where I want to know what's going on in television and film and games. I want to know what's going on in comics too. So I'm hoping we get a nice balance in that 4-hour span of all of those things. And I hope there's additional content because last year it was a lot of fun to shop around and see other stuff that was there. I don't know what this is going to look like yet, but I'm anxiously anticipating. October's around the corner, and we're going to be soon talking about this. I can't wait for Fandom.
Dude, big time. Can't wait for that because I'll be honest. Yeah, think back to last time. The last Fandom got me excited for the Milestone comics.
Yep.
The last time got me reading Sandman. Of course, those the Wonder Woman stuff that was awesome, and the Suicide Squad panels. Those were some stuff that I was really came out of these fandoms that really got me excited for it. So I'm 100% want this. I miss conventions. I miss the gathering of my brethren, under a common place. And I wish we could do it again. And unfortunately, I don't know what's going to happen with that because I don't know about anybody else in the world, but Ohio's numbers are going up. Our COVID numbers are going up. And I don't see any type of major convention, attending a major convention anytime soon just because of, fear. I'll be completely blunt with everybody. I am terrified of this stuff. So if they give us these virtual stuff that I can actually attend from the safety of my own home, I am all for it. So 100% full on backing on this and can't wait for it.
So from a work stand, I wanted to go to New York Comic Con this year, and I know you and I are in different places on this, and I think there's no wrong answer on this. You mentioned the virtual piece. You can actually, there's a virtual component now to New York Comic Con, which I think this is smart for companies to do. Monetize the fact that you're going to have people in different kind of places, and I'm glad to see conventions finding creative ways to allow people to watch and participate from at home. I actually hope that sticks around. I prefer being in person, so you're not going to lose me by making an online component. What you're going to do, though, is sometimes life doesn't let you go. Take the pandemic out of it, and sometimes there's just not the opportunity to go on that weekend, but you want to participate. You want to see the panels. You want to be a part of that. I'll be honest, conventions that I went to, if I could pay an additional fee and then afterwards watch panels I couldn't go to, that would be a great value add for me. So I see that being there being an audience that wants to be there physically, an audience that wants to be there physically and wants the virtual, and an audience who wants a virtual. So I'm hoping this continues to be like a thing on conventions. The one convention that I really want to go to this year, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off, is Wizard World Chicago because it's the last Wizard World. So much history of that. But, it's one of those things, work again. I'm interviewing for another job, and I don't know if that's going to pan out or not. So I'm kind of being very tentative right now because this is all happening around the time frame where I would have to make some serious decisions about new employment potentially and make some transitions, so I'm not. I am booked to go to the first Doctor Who convention I've gone to in years. I went to a convention in Chicago called Visions years ago. My wife and I used to go every year. And when that convention folded, I had not gone to a Doctor Who convention in years. I started going to comic conventions just because another great love of mine to kind of expand my horizons. And Mid-Ohio Con was one that I went to all the time, Wizard World Chicago. But I'm going to my first, fingers crossed, Outpost Gallifrey in February, which is the first big convention I'm set to go to. And they keep sending out information on what guidelines look like with the pandemic. Because I take those serious. It's like, okay, whatever, I'll play ball, whatever we're supposed to do at these things. I'm just hoping the numbers look better because it's next year. So it's not now, it's in February. So I'm hoping like by February we've gotten kind of a better handle on this than we got now. Because you're right, numbers are ramping up right now. And that's one of those things where I'm not, and this is not a statement on anybody that feels differently than I do on this, so please keep that in mind. This is just how I personally feel. I've played along the whole time. I've gotten COVID before, so I know what COVID does to me, as far as that end goes. I don't want it again, but I know I can survive it, and it stunk. I'll put it to you that way. There's people out there, though, that I'll use my stepfather as an example. He's got severe lung and heart issues. He gets COVID, he's done. I mean, and I don't say that lightly. Please know when I say that, I'm more respecting the situation right now. It is a disease that a pandemic that you've got to take very, very seriously. You get this and you have underlying conditions that you may or may not be aware of. It's dangerous. So I'm with you as far as we've got to take it seriously. I take precautions seriously. I was going to ask you, what does this do for you for conventions? Obviously for me, it doesn't keep me from the idea of going, but I would go, but play by the rules. Like, I think that's the thing right now that people aren't doing. It's like, respect the fact that if you're going to a place that has a certain set of rules, follow those rules. Play along, whether you agree with them or not. It's, they have rules, they're in place, play along with the rules. If they're not, here's the thing, if you don't like the rules, don't go. Is the way I look at it. It's when I go into stores and things like that, and they've got courtesy signs out there saying, hey, please do this for the sake of our employees. All right, last thing I thought the great promise of the vaccine was I wasn't going to be masking up. That's not quite the way that's gone down. You got to wear masks when you go in places, if they ask you to. And I'm fine with that. It's like, that's the thing. But I think the distancing and masking still is a thing. And I think we got to do it. But that wouldn't keep me from going to a convention. I do with you, though. You mentioned something that's interesting. I think everybody's right, as far as if you feel completely safe being around people with the pandemic, or you're kind of the other end of the spectrum, and everything in between. That's a very personal decision right now. We have to respect it. That's where I stand on that. I think I was going to ask you where you felt on conventions. I love the idea of this virtual stuff. I really think it's a great opportunity for somebody. You don't have to miss it. And you can help monetize the convention, because what we want is a year from now, 2 years from now, I want to be able to go to a convention with you. You know what I mean? Because we haven't done that in a while. I love going to a convention with you where you and I get to go to panels together and even kind of go, listen, these two panels we both want to see, but they're running at the same time. Why don't we divide and conquer and then chat about them afterwards? I love doing that kind of stuff. So I'm longing for the days where you and I can kind of get back to hitting a con or two together in the course of a year and really having some fun. The only way we're going to get there is if these conventions survive. I'm glad they're finding a way to monetize it using the virtual option. And I hope that's successful for them, that it gets them through this, that they make profits like they were expecting. I hope that there's some opportunity to connect vendors with people through those virtual options as well, because I love convention swag. Fandome's a virtual thing. I bought 4 shirts. So, I'm not going physically to Fandome. In my mind, I am, because I'm clearly planning for, I guess that's kind of like a shirt an hour, but but there's some cool swag around conventions, and I love being a part of that. So virtual or not, I already did sign up for New York Comic Con's virtual option. So
okay, cool. I got to look that up. I didn't realize they were running a virtual, because I'm 100% in on that. Just again, I don't mind. I've got no problem paying for a virtual con. Mm-hmm. And it's it's because I want to have those panels. I do want to see that. Now, I miss the walking on the floor and just feeling the energy of the con. That's the thing I do miss, and with with last year's, with the Fandome last year, they tried to give you kind of that groove and that feel, but it was missing something. And that's just the mass of people together. Because I know there was a lot of times when you just stop and you just look around and you just see all that. You're like, this is awesome, And I would love to go to, Wizard World Chicago. That was my first major con I ever went. That was actually the first con I ever went to, period. Yeah. Was Wizard World Chicago. That was the very first one I ever went to. So I would like to go there for the last one, but not going to happen. There's no way. There's no way I could bring myself to do that. And that stinks. So, I hate seeing it go away. I hate the fact that I'm not doing it. But as you said, this is my comfort level with all my medical conditions, all my dad's medical stuff. There's no way I am going to risk my family over this personal thing. It's, to me, you look at the price, the risk versus reward. And the reward is high. I'd love to do it, but I can't do it. There's no way. If I got sick, or if worse, Dad got sick, that's my biggest thing. If my dad got sick because I brought something back from that con, I would never forgive myself. That's my driving factor. I'm not doing this stuff.
Right. And my stepdad lived with me. I'd be in the same. See, that's just it. My stepdad, he doesn't see anybody. We talk on the phone,
right.
And if I drop stuff off at his place, I leave it in the garage for him, because he goes to stores to pick up his food and then basically comes home and he sees his girlfriend, and it's which I actually like, that he's kind of keeping things kind of tight and doing all that.
Yes.
So he won't come to big family gatherings or things like that, because he knows that people that are going to be there are doing things that he isn't doing right now. I think everybody's got to have a certain level of what they feel comfortable with right now. You mentioned being on the floor at cons, and I couldn't agree with you more. I was nodding as you were saying it. There's a sense of camaraderie that I love the virtual part, because I love the panels and I want to know what's going on. I want the news. I want to know about comics and other media that I didn't know was coming. And I love getting excited for that kind of thing. You mentioned Milestone on the DC Fandom. Across comics, that's where I'm excited for New York Comic Con. A chance to be able to see what is happening all across comics, independent publishers, and just a wide variety of other Marvel, what's going on over there. I love knowing where, what creators are going to be doing what, and what kind of stories are coming up, and what we should be expecting. That kind of stuff is neat. So I'm glad we have a virtual option this year to be able to participate. I hope it's successful for them. I really, really do. I hope it's successful for everybody involved. I hope there's a way for Artist Alley to take advantage of virtual options. There's some links to them or something like that where you can get commissions virtually. You can get to know a little bit more. I think as this virtual grows, I think there's a way to support people who are vendors that are there and people who are in Artist Alley who are there. As far as for, connecting fans with ability to online book commissions and things, so that way people can monetize further. I hope that's happening. I'm very curious. I signed up for the New York Comic Con virtual option because I can't be there, but also I'm very curious to see what that looks like. I'd like to see that expand the same way that we're seeing the physical conventions expand, where over time virtual option pays off for just a wide variety of people. Because that's why people who attend, I'm talking about artists that attend in particular and vendors that attend, this is an opportunity for them to reach a larger audience, to get their name out there and become a source. At a time where people are hurting right now, I'm hoping the virtual option's lending for that opportunity as well. Have you done any online, other than Fandom, have you done online conventions yet for anything that was supposed to be physical?
No, I haven't yet. Well, I had a couple work stuff where, I did online. I've got to do extra training, and continuing education stuff. So I've had a couple of those things, but that's really just a Zoom meeting. So it's not an actual convention.
So I've done through work a couple conventions that were for education, that they are vendor based. Especially when I was running operations last year, there were big conventions that I would go to, and the nice part is, and the tech ones actually too for ed tech, where there were networking options with vendors as well. I actually liked the virtual option for connecting with vendors better, which was strange, I know to say, but you didn't have the awkward kind of bypassing that you do. Because here's the thing, the vendor doesn't lose out by avoiding that awkward interaction with me, because I wasn't going to be a source for them anyway. But where it did help is I was much more inclined to seek out the ones that I was interested in that may have gotten bypassed otherwise. So I found that I was connecting more with vendors virtually than I would have even in person, which is an interesting sort of thing. So I'm hoping that eventually can translate to that opportunity for comic and pop culture related vendors and artists and people like that are on the show floor, that they have another source I don't want to see a replacement of the physical in-person component, but I would love to see another source for them to monetize the experience. Because that is part of this piece. And it's a lot of times we talk about money, and it seems like a taboo thing to discuss. And no, these people need to make money. It's part of the process. The fan interaction's fantastic, and that camaraderie is great. But part of that camaraderie is support. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually just the opposite. You want to embrace that because people need to make a living. And that's part of what that interaction's all about. So I think it's great that these opportunities are out there. Let's talk, speaking of comics, let's talk Titans United. Titans United #1, Power Grab. Kevin Scott is the writer, Jose Luis on pencils, Jonas Trinidad on inks, Rex Locus on colors, Carlos M. Mangual on letters, Jamal Campbell on the cover, Kael Yu, it's Kaelngu is on the variant cover. Apologies for, I know there was some name butchery there. Jungyeon Yoon on the variant cover, Michael McAllister, the editor, Superboy based on characters created by Jerry Siegel by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. So, again, apologies for name butchery. This is interesting because Titans United clearly is connected to the regular DC continuity. What I think that they've done really well here, though, is I would not hesitate to hand this to somebody watching the show right now. I think they've, in their own way, connected it to the Curtain Titans. Are you watching Titans Season 3?
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely wonderful. Loving it.
Wouldn't you agree that this comic is great for the current Titans reader and the current Titans watcher? Like, if you are only on one of those spectrums, this is a mini-series you could hand either, and they would be very much at home?
Yeah, well, big time. Looks and sounds a little bit different than the TV show, but these are, the same characters, but still have a similar groove to who the Titans are. So I think you could transition either way without a problem.
So this is an interesting story because we've got this villain that, one of my favorite X-Men villains from the early years of X-Men was Mimic, who would be able, I don't know if you remember him, he used to be able to take on the powers of the X-Men. Yeah. And multiple X-Men at one time. So you were fighting this villain that was able to... villain's a very tough word for him. He was complicated. And I think this is a similar situation where this Evan doesn't know what's going on. He's all of a sudden walking down the street and powers are like coming out, like he's blasting out of his eyes, almost like Cyclops from the X-Men, strangely enough. I've always loved the connection between X-Men and Teen Titans. I think there is kind of this is DC's X-Men. I've always, because New Teen Titans with Wolfman and Perez was at its height when the Claremont Byrne X-Men was running. I just had such an affinity for both teams because it was just such a great era. So it's neat to see certain tropes that are going to be different because you're dealing with different heroes. I love the exploration of Superboy in this. Connor is one of my favorite characters, and we had this long period where they were relaunching him for the New 52, and it was him, and I was enjoying the story, but it was never quite him because it had been a reboot of him. Now we've got him back. And we've got stories that are really dealing with, again, what I think is the interesting exploration. You're a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, right? You're not really quite fully either one of them. I think what we know as readers about Connor is where he in some ways surpasses both, or in his own way, comes into his own, is when he embraces all of who he is, and we get to see what's unique about him. And that's where the character thrives and shines, right? I don't want him to be Superman. I don't want him to be Lex Luthor. I want him to be Connor. And he works in that capacity. I love seeing the character in this. I love that he's such a spotlight in this. And seeing him through the eyes of Red Hood and the relationship between the two of them is really an interesting dynamic. I'm sure we've seen the two interact before, but I don't remember it as prominently as it's being told in this. And that interaction is such a great part of the story.
I know, and it's I don't remember ever seeing these two on the same team even. So I don't know how much interaction we've had between them. And it's funny. I always, whenever Jason is Jason, I always wonder, is he being just a bit obnoxious, or is there a side reason behind it? Is he trying to push for something else? Is he, putting up defensive mechanisms, or what's going on here? Because sometimes you get Jason can be a bit of a jerk, and then sometimes you get him where he's the true hero and he's got that true hero mindset. And then you get other times where he's that scared kid who is just putting up his defenses, so he doesn't get hurt. And I think one of the interesting things with him and Connor in this is I don't know which Jason we're getting here. Because he very easily could be just being a jerk, or he very easily could be, feels threatened based on what Connor brings to the table. And so when Connor starts to lose his powers, that kind of gives him that moment where he says, "Hey, see, I can shine." Or is he just being a jerk? Jason is such a wonderful character. I love him. And with Connor, there's all this mystery and this unknown of who he is. He doesn't always know who he is. So I think these two together are a great combination. You can really have some good stuff going on with them.
Wait, there's a lot of parallels, too, when you think about it. Not quite Robin. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons what he's saying to Connor almost echoes maybe his own view of himself. Like, he's lashing out in a way that you look back at. I mean, that's where it gets mind-blowing. You're like, sitting here like, are you talking to him or are you looking in a mirror in those moments? So it's interesting when you see the interactions and you go to the history of Jason. And you're like, he wasn't ever quite Dick Grayson. And certainly Tim Drake, when Jason was replaced, came onto his own and shined in a very different light. So Jason's one of those interesting characters. I've always loved Jason. Even when it got to the point where I've always said, what made me vote to save Jason's life in When You Could, which is such a bizarre thing to say, was the fact that Batman the Cult was so good with him. I'm like, I'm really starting to like this kid. I'll save him. And I think that's the reason why the vote was so close. He was a character that could be polarizing, and I find that intriguing about him. This embraces that. And the interaction between the two of them is, I don't know, like, if we haven't seen this before, I don't know why we haven't, because it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So
one of the things it kind of does, I love the Teen Titans, and I love this Titans lineup, but part of me wishes, and I don't want to say I don't want Nightwing there, but I wonder if the team didn't have Nightwing and it only had Jason, how that would even be more different. That'd be kind of an interesting combo, because you got Nightwing there, who we all know Nightwing is going to be Nightwing. He's going to, patch up things and keep things groovy. But without him there, how would Jason react? Because Jason would be the Bat representative.
Yeah, we've had Jason. Well, we've had Jason on Titans before. I'm going back when he was Robin. There was a time when Jason was regularly interacting with Titans. But again, that was with Nightwing back in the day. Dick Grayson was there. So it's interesting to see this dynamic forming again in this particular miniseries. It's funny, by the end of the first issue, I was like, I would like this to be an ongoing. Like, I really like this lineup. I don't know that I want Nightwing off the team. I get what you're saying as far as it would be great to see them split off and maybe see Jason have more interactions without Nightwing there. But I really like this. Like, when I'm looking at the splash page with this lineup where you've got Superboy, you've got Raven, you've got Red Hood, you've got Beast Boy, you've got Starfire, Donna Troy, and Nightwing. Like, a pretty darn good lineup.
This is a powerful lineup.
Yeah. I really like this. I'm loving Titans Academy right now, and it's great that we're getting miniseries that are spinning off of that, where we're spotlighting teams. And I hope this is something that they plan to do more of, because, especially when you got this type of creative on it, because this first issue was a really good creative team. I'm not familiar with the writer. I want to know more about the writer after this, though, because this issue just nailed it.
Oh, big time. And I agree with you. And this is one of those where I love the look of the book. I'm loving the story. And what we already talked about, just that there's going to be that little kind of the Connor and Jason lineup is going to be really cool, and we've already seen glimpses of it. Now, thing I was wondering, with Superboy losing his powers, after, because you remember when Clark goes supernova, he loses his powers for 24 hours. I wonder if that's what we got going on here with Connor. He's never done supernova before, but who knows? Maybe with this guy, with this, this character, and I'm using air quotes around villain because he's not really a bad guy. He's just had no control over anything. I wonder if that's what triggered the supernova power.
Well, you're saying that because Connor didn't go supernova, the other guy did.
Right, but because of the kind of the connection, the guy pulls power.
So right. So he sapped it.
Connor's power to go supernova.
Got it. Was it Connor's power though, or Corey's?
He was tapping into both of them, but one of the main thing he was tapping into was Connor because the heat vision. He had the heat vision going first.
But she's referencing Corey as that, and she's like solar energy more than I can absorb. So she absorbs solar energy. That's where her powers come from.
Right.
So I can see what you're saying, though. Was it her, or was it a combination of her and him? Was it like multiple power, like the combination of the two?
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. But does she have powers after this? She does, doesn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, because she flies to catch him.
Right. Yeah, no, and she's the one that flies him to... it's interesting. I would be curious to see where this is going with the exploration of this. I'm nodding as you're kind of talking through this. I'm more intrigued by where you're going with this. Was that what happened there with Connor? Was it the tapping into the power? And honestly, Connor was front and center for that explosion. Yeah, I want to know what's going on with him. I think that's clearly he's going to be a spotlighted character in this, and he's welcome because I've loved him in Suicide Squad. I'm really digging him here. I want to see more of Connor and what's going on with this character, so I'm glad that this miniseries is out right now. I want to know timeline-wise where this takes place in relation to Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was curious about because, like, you look at Jason and he still has his guns.
Right.
So the current issues of Batman, Jason put away the guns. So that right there says where it could fall in line. But I'm wondering if this is the lead into how he got on Suicide Squad, if this leads the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't asking that in the sense that I need that in the sense to enjoy this story. But I think it's the continuity fan in me that like wants to kind of place this somewhere. So I'm choosing to believe it either takes place before or after, but Jason's the one that throws it off with the guns. Although, who knows if he doesn't end up adopting them in some way afterwards, different, with rubber bullets or something like that. I don't know.
Well, he's been using rubber bullets
the
whole time. So that's something that. But he even, because you think back to the Batman Urban Legends,
right, which is great
issue with him and Bruce, where he said, "I'm done with the guns." It just doesn't feel right. So. And then in the present day, Batman stories, he's without the guns. So it's that for me is a good indicator on timeline.
Yeah, this has to be before.
Yeah.
Or something happens that changes his mind. But yeah, it's interesting when he absorbs Beast Boy's powers and how seeing Beast Boy's powers manifest from such an emotional point, because he is not in control of what's happening to him. It's all emotional reaction. Every use of everybody's power is there's not a thought process going on in this. This is all emotional reaction. So it's very interesting to see how violent that can be. In the sense that his lashing out, whether it's as a beast or with Corey's power, it's all totally driven by something that he can't explain. He cannot explain to you what's happening to himself.
Yep. No, and that's the part of the stuff where it makes you go, he's not really a villain. He's out of control. And it's one of those things where you feel bad for the guy. And I don't know if he survives the supernova blast. Connor hits the ground, but nobody else does. So I think that guy, I don't think we'll see him again.
I like that they're trying to save him in spite of all this. They recognize this is something that they're not trying, they obviously don't want him to die. They're recognizing that this is something they need to get under control to analyze, and they never are able to really get to that point. I really enjoyed like seeing that. I like stories sometimes where the heroes survive, but they're trying. I think heroics is not always about winning. It's about picking yourself back up. Again, the Titans are one of my favorite teams for this because this is where they're compatible with the X-Men. I became a big fan of Uncanny X-Men because of the fact that it wasn't always like about clean wins. There were times when that team just survived. Yeah. And as a family, they dealt with that survival together. In this particular situation, they're dealing with it too, where people have gotten hurt on their team. This is dangerous, the world that they operate in. It doesn't take anything away from them, the fact that they just don't run over their enemies. It makes it more compelling, makes it more human, makes it accessible. But it shows you're getting involved in a world that is dangerous when you're doing this. You see it, we're going to talk about Justice League in a little bit. You see this in Justice League, this kind of idea of this is a dangerous situation, especially for newbies. And people who don't understand this world can recognize you could die out there.
Yep.
Beast Boy and what happens with him in this whole situation where Raven walks over to try and help him, and Starfire are trying to help him too. I love that he's joking, during part of that process, but that's an emotional reaction to something where otherwise he'd be scared. And I like seeing that about him. I like Beast Boy a lot. I like his relationship with Raven. And I like that this is exploring some of that too. Those interpersonal relationships have been a hallmark of Teen Titans over the years, and I think the best runs have had friendships and relationships that are intermingling on the team where you want to see them succeed, and yet they have, due to their differences, they have such challenges in making a relationship work in this environment. I love seeing this interplay and how it plays out.
It's the little funny moments in the middle of the combat, that kind of, again, it's easy to get distracted, in a story if you throw too much in there. You got to blend it in just right. And I like these moments because, everything with Beast Boy, throughout that. I don't know who you are, King Kong, but I know copyright infringement when I see it as he attacks. And then later on, when he gets blasted, Rachel, is he the love of your life? You better believe it, hot stuff. Little subtle bits like that, little funny moments that I was like, okay, I like those in there. And it doesn't take away anything of the energy of the story. And even Connor had that great moment when he's flying up to save the day and his flight kicks off and he's like, not good, not good, not good, as he's flying to the ground. It's, again, little funny bits. And then you have a great interaction between Red Hood and Connor. I love how this story laid it out, where they have some good action, some little funny bits, some development of the story, all blended nicely.
The sequence, this is a beautiful shot. It's the one where he's got 3 heads, 3 different animal heads. Oh, yeah. And you see just how out of control he's pleading with them. Please, this ain't my fault. I've done nothing wrong. And he literally is out of control, completely and utterly out of control. And it's nice seeing this team, even though I say that they're surviving, you also get why these guys are capable, this whole group is capable of being teachers to these kids at Titans Academy. There is, a less experienced group would not be surviving this. And this is something, yes, it's accidental, what's happening, but it is a completely out of control situation. They might escalate it further. An untrained group that has not been through the experience that they have here. So this is a really great compliment to Titans Academy, having this miniseries out there. And I liked having 2 Titans books when we had them. We had Titans and Teen Titans going on. I wouldn't mind seeing either a continuation of doing miniseries like this. DC's use of miniseries right now is really good. Like, there hasn't been fluff miniseries that have been going on. They've told really compelling stories and have been, in their own way, connecting threads. This feels like it could predate Titans Academy and predate what's going on with Superboy and Red Hood right now in a way that is real fitting. I like that. I don't care if they I would love, if there's an editor's note that spells that out, but I don't necessarily need that. I can do that. We're kind of doing it in our discussion organically anyway, where we've taken things that are going in continuity to go, okay, this has to happen before. I'm okay with that. I just am liking the story a great deal.
Yeah, big time. And I agree with you. The usage of these miniseries and the connections, and it's kind of like now you're getting the rest of the story. We've got some main titles out there, and I would like to see some type of connection to Suicide Squad or Titans Academy, because those are their ongoing. Maybe we can tie this where this fits in there. But if I don't get it, I'm still getting a great story, and I'm still enjoying it. So this is kind of like right now in a really cool place for me. I'm enjoying what I'm getting. There's so much more that could come down the line, which has me excited for the next issue. But if it just keeps giving me a good story, I've won.
Yep. Whose characters who I adore, a character that I adore, but I would never in a million years want her powers? Raven.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I love Raven. I think Raven is an amazing character. But my gosh, the curse that comes along with her powers, it just seems like there's always a negative. Like when she, the kindness of helping people, but helping people always seems to hurt her when she's trying to do that. Like, she takes on a lot herself. I love the character. I think her issues make her such a great part of the team. Like, they've led to amazingly huge stories. Adore her. And I want her to be happy. You long for that for her, where things are going to get there. But so much is working against her that there's something to be said for this character. But she's somebody, every time I see her, when she's well written, like in this, you see things where you're like, my gosh, she's like burning her hands up trying to help this guy. And she would do it again. Like, you just know she would go and do that same thing again, take that same risk again to try and make things right, because she's trying to make things better for people, mainly because of her background and everything she's gone through. I love that character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, it's one of those doomed kind of heroes where you want her just to be happy. But I don't know what would happen if she did she'll never be able to let her guard down just because of the nature of her power. She always has to have some form of control. And that kind of stinks for her because she can't. That's one of the reasons I like her and Beast Boy together so much, because he is such that free spirit, and you're like, he could help her, but she can't always have that help. So it's kind of a neat combination of those two.
One of my favorite sequences, because it just added this sense of danger to everything, and you need miniseries like this every so often to add that. You see Connor falling from the sky, and you see the two of them flying, and Donna Troy's line of, Corey, we're not going to make it. And they don't. They don't make it. Connor comes crashing down to Earth. They were trying to catch him. They were trying to make sure, to minimize the damage to him, and they couldn't. And I love that. Growing up, it was funny. I was reading Batman and Spider-Man, and I can't wait. Next episode, we're going to talk about Batman the World, and there's some stories that sparked what I loved about Batman in my childhood. But one of the things about Spider-Man was also this sense of, there was a humanity to Spider-Man, I think in some of the best Spider-Man stories, where he'd get both in personal life and in costume. He'd getting beaten down pretty good. This is one of those stories where this team's getting beaten up, yet there's no quit to the Titans. They, as a family, they band together and pick each other up and keep going. And there's something to that that's inspiring. We all have, you and I have shared many times off the air and on the air sometimes, things that are going on in our personal lives, but also going on at work, where it's been less than ideal, shall we say. And I mean, those things go in peaks and troughs. But when you have both of them going on at the same time, as we both had at times, it's really hard to keep up and keep going. You need stories like this every so often that take you out of your world. And in a fictional universe, you see these people that are persevering in things that are really tough. It sometimes gives you a little oomph, and you connect with it in a way that you're not expecting. That's what I love about the Titans. I love these characters where it's not always clean. And there's something to be said about the fact that they're likable in their own way. I think you can plug in members a lot of times of your friendship group to the various personalities that are present, right?
Yep.
Where you can plug people in. And it feels, I mean, you and I have been very fortunate over the years that we share just a wealth of friends in common. And I think there's been many times we can plug them onto this team.
Yes.
In various roles, or at least amalgamations of them in the various parts of those roles. And I think that's where it starts to feel real and three-dimensional, is when these characters are not at all cookie cutter. They all have different backstories. And by putting them together in this mishmash, it just becomes just a really, really fun story. This is what I don't know this. It's Kevin Scott, and I apologize for name butchery because this is a writer who I want to get to know. Really did a nice job for this first issue. Have you seen this name before for writing?
No. That's and it's funny. One of the things I like to do, and it's one of the neat things about the internet is you can find out other stuff they've done, and then you can easier to grab books they've worked on and stuff like that. So he is a name I'm going to look up and see what other work we've got on him.
Yeah, I want to get to know because I felt this issue out of the gate was great pace. A lot of character development and drama, interaction between the characters. I don't want to say drama because it's not all drama. It's great interaction just in general between the characters. I really like the balance. This is a very balanced first issue from, I think, a writer I just don't know, and I want to get to know because of this issue. I think that's a victory out of a starting gate where it's, what else has this writer done that I should be checking out because I really enjoyed the flow of this. That's got to be cool when you're jumping on a book and like this, and there's now new fans that you're gonna, because I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Is there anything else about Titans that you want to discuss that we haven't had a chance to? I mean, we end up with Hawk and Dove, which is cool. I want to versus Kite Man.
Kite Man, yeah, Kite Man. And I keep hearing that voice, by the way. Kite Man, yeah. From the Harley's.
Oh yeah,
series. So they've ruined Kite Man. No, I don't want to say ruined, but I'm locked into that name, that voice, that style, and I like the fact that Kite Man's got these powers now, and they're like, wait, you're getting your butt kicked by Kite Man? So again, it's not just that one guy out of nowhere. It's now other people, and there's pop-ups of these powers going on all over the universe, all over the universe. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see where this leads. And I think that's this whole thing about Titans United. And I honestly think this is what kind of is going to lead into Titans Academy. Now I think this is the notion though that brings more of the Titans Academy together.
Maybe. That'll be. It could be. You're saying that events in this might be a catalyst,
right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh no, you don't.
Before we jump into talking about Justice League, I want to talk about an ad that's in here. This Whistle, a new Gotham City hero. It's one of these new young adult books that are coming out in September. I'm intrigued by this. Like, just a girl and her dog. Can they save the city? I've got to say, one of the things I think that DC, and it was my biggest worry when there was, editors being cut and they were, changing up talent and things like that. It's like, where's the exploration going to be? Where are we going to get new and unique things? They're doing it. I mean, we're getting things like this that are coming out. I'm intrigued by this. So, because that's important to me in comics. I don't want us trapped in a lane where we're not getting any experimentation. We're still getting it. So, my concerns beforehand, first of all, I look for two things. I look, where are my favorite creators landing? And I continue to search for them right now because I'm still waiting to see where my favorite creators are going to be at. If they're not going to be at DC, where should I be following them? And those type of things going forward. And I feel bad for editors because there have been some terrific editors that I know we've lost that I don't always know where they've landed. And I'm hoping that I'm supporting them. Not realizing it, if that makes any sense, because the name recognition isn't always, and I really don't mean this as an insult. The name recognition isn't always there, but I know that behind the scenes, a lot of my enjoyments come from the tight editorial and great things that they've done. So I hope that they land somewhere. But then after that, the thing that's really important to me is diversity of product and just, people that are experimenting where you get these these things that you fall in love with that maybe lasts only one graphic novel or one miniseries or something like that you're like, that was amazing, I want more. And it's something unique and quirky and clever that it didn't grab a large audience, but you were glad that you were a part of it and it's special to you. I love when I see stuff like this. I don't know after I read it if I'm going to get that from it or not, but I'm intrigued. I look at the cover of this and I'm like, well, this could be really fun. And I hope it is. I hope it's something where I'm like, man, I'm glad I picked this up. It's not targeted to me because it's, part of these young adult graphic novels, but like anything that's out there, sometimes when they're aiming for a target, it pleases a much larger audience than the intention. These have been good. I haven't read all of them, but a lot of these young adult graphic novels that I've been grabbing, there hasn't been one that I've read so far that I haven't enjoyed. So, but I have not read all of them. So the ones that I've read so far, I've really enjoyed. Have you read any of these, and what have you thought?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to echo everything you just said. I haven't read them all, but every one I've read, I've enjoyed. And I think, and like that one, I grabbed that one, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm going to soon. And even though they say they're targeting young adults, even the old adult in me, or the old kid in me, I don't know what I am, if I'm an old kid or a young kid or young, I don't know where I am, but I am who I am, and I enjoy them. So I'm not their target. I wasn't their intended reader, but I still get a kick out of them. And, some of the stuff, I've actually read some of those books a couple times, and it's a nice little it's just a fun factor, just an enjoyment, So, and sometimes it's good not to have to deal with a continuity. Sometimes it's good just to have an entertaining story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I hope this is, because it looks like fun. In Gotham City.
Yes.
Which you don't usually expect. So, can we talk about Justice League? Because I'm super excited for this book.
Oh, yeah. Justice League, issue number 67. The writer is Brian Michael Bendis. Pencils by Phil Hester. Inks by Greg Gapster. Colors by Hi-Fi. Letters by Josh Reed. Cover by Dave Marquez with Alejandro Sanchez. Variant cover Alexander Lozano. Associate editor Bixie Mayhew with editor Mike Cotton. Superman, of course, was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family.
Dude, this run's amazing.
Oh yeah.
I love the lineup. Like, it's an unusual lineup. I mean that in the most complimentary way. This is a great, I am really having fun with this run. I'm so glad we're talking about this on the show, because over the years, there's been various times where we've dipped in and out of Justice League, but it seems like we've focused a lot more on a lot of the characters on the Justice League in their own books versus talking about Justice League themselves. This is a run I really want to talk about because there are things going on here that are huge. This is a great run. I'm really enjoying the lineup, the team. Where the covers, Black Canary and Green Arrow. And I love these two together right now. The writing on this is top-notch. I love the newer characters that you wouldn't expect, like Black Adam and Naomi on a Justice League team. It works, though. Oh, my gosh, this is a really, really great roll call lineup. Because you look at we got Black Adam, we got Green Arrow, we got Hippolyta, Batman, Naomi, Superman, Black Canary, Hawkgirl, Aquaman, and The Flash. And it's Barry Allen. I wonder if it's going to turn over to Wally at some point, or if we're going to keep Barry on here. I'm fine either way because I'm liking Barry's usage in this. It's a really great lineup, and I'm liking seeing Wally in the main Flash book. So I don't care what route they go with this. This lineup right now is a perfect lineup. I would not on paper have put this lineup together, but it is so balanced with just a great mix of characters. Two team books we're talking about this episode. I'm really loving both of them.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I look at the lineup, I know there's people are gonna disappear from this lineup. Superman eventually is gonna go away. So when Superman goes away, do they replace him with John? Or do they keep the Black Adam powerhouse as their, one of their powerhouses? Flash has everything going on, as you said earlier. Will Wally slip in, or will we keep Barry, or will they lose a speedster or get a different speedster? Naomi and Hippolyta are probably the two that I was like, man, this is neat. This is a really cool place for them. I like that Hippolyta has taken Diana's spot, because Diana is not around right now in the main continuity. She's got her own thing she's dealing with. And then just that addition of Naomi on the team was really cool, because, the opening story arc was in the alternate dimension kind of connection that, she comes from. So it, tied, into that to bring her into the mix. And those were some great stories. So I'm really, really loving this lineup.
I like her too. Really like her. I think the story you're mentioning, I think furthered my understanding of her as a character and cemented that this is a character that I want to follow more. And she serves a real purpose on the team in being kind of the newbie to all of this. We're seeing everything through her eyes. And I really am liking that. I love characters like that because they add this sense of accessibility. And she does a great job of that. Very well written. Yeah. And I'm glad she's getting a TV. I want to see this TV pilot with her and see where that goes, because she's a character now who more and more I'm becoming intrigued by.
Yeah. She's a neat and interesting one. That it's kind of, you like seeing these new characters that come on the scene, and they're having a little bit of flex with her, and they're not afraid to, let's try something different with this character, so let's see where it goes. And I like the diversity, I like the change, and I like just looking at a different type of hero. And I've always been a fan of the young teenage heroes, because there's so many cool stories they can tell with them, because you're going through all types of natural changes, you're going through all types of things going on in your life, the craziness of life. Oh, you got superpowers. Oh, you're on the Justice League. It's how much more are they going to throw at this kid, and I want to see how that plays out. Yeah,
it's a great way to put it. I want to see how it plays out, too. I think it's something that's intriguing and interesting about this. It's really a really well-written book. Phil Hester's artwork on this, most of my exposure to it that I look back to is just a great Green Arrow run. And being able to see this artwork here, I immediately recognized it when it was in the book. We see this great opening sequence with Leo Lane, which we're expanding Lois Lane's world a bit here.
Yes, and that was outstanding.
I like him. I want to get to know more about him and his story. This interplay with her and Lois is great. Again, we're seeing that Lois has access to... Lois Lane wants to find you. She's going to find you. Yep. And I love that sequence.
Yeah, and again, I always like seeing when Lois just shows you why... she is the best at what she does. Very simple. And why would a man with godlike powers, be in love with this woman? Well, you're seeing this right here. She's got a level that none of us work on. She's got her own superpowers in that she's got this wicked, awesome, the investigative reporter, just the never say die, never quit attitude, just that pure Lois Lane moments. And in a couple quick pages, we do still get a glimpse of that pure Lois Lane moments. And I was very happy with this.
I am Hawkslayer. I like seeing more Thanagarians. Bring it on. And I like that Batman was asking Hawkgirl, who is this person? Because the team's, trying to assess now what's going on around them, because this is shell-shocked. Hall of Justice has been blown up at this point. We've got Sinmar, who is really packing a lot of power, because now it's a lineup of Justice League and reservists, which I've always loved this. Avengers does this too, where growing up, they had these source books a lot of times where they would tell you all of the Avengers reservists.
Yeah. And
you could find out who Justice League reservists were and things like that. I always liked the idea that there's a core team, but then there's a much larger team and a button push if you need them. And you'd ever so often have people come in as a reservist that would be helping out on specific missions because of their talents. Adam wound up periodically being, in particular, somebody they used as a reservist who would pop in because of his scientific skills or his ability to shrink people down to microscopic size, stuff like that. I always liked that concept. And you see it used very well here, where we've got, Booster Gold, we've got Firestorm, we've got, Blue Devil, and so on, Captain Atom and Vixen.
Plastic Man.
Yeah, Plastic Man.
I love that bit. He's like, Captain Atom, reporting for duty. I was just going to say that, but then I remembered, I'm Plastic Man.
he is like great when he's brought onto the team. And when you've got a good writer on a book, they are able to capture in a very short period of time the right elements of the personalities of these characters. This story feels very epic, though, which a Justice League story should, where you feel like Justice League really needs, like, you've got a team with Superman and Black Adam on it alone. I mean, that's before you get to everybody else who's a powerhouse. And they're struggling in this. It says a lot about what you're dealing with here.
Oh, big time. And it's funny. I liked, when they kind of did the roll call in the middle of fight. You think about it, they're like, hey, who should we be hitting was Firestorm's line. And they all are like, no, back up Superman. Whoever Superman targets, that's your target. And I loved seeing that. And again, each member was kept throwing more and more and more power at this guy, and he was taking it. Not only was he taking it, he was using that energy and getting stronger. And I love seeing, just that conversation in the middle of the combat between Bruce and Clark. Clark, it's time. No. Clark, I was like, man, I'm like, what are they talking about? And it was absolutely wonderful when it finally happens. Because throughout this, they're hitting him everything you got. Bruce is flat out telling him, hey, this is an attack at super boost charge. Clark, he's growing more powerful as the battle continues. There's no other options. And I love seeing just that debate going back and forth between these two.
There's also, too, this idea of how Clark's changed and evolved, right? He's met his birth father. And because of circumstance that really, it's funny, when you look back at that story, you can almost go, well, Jor-El was kind of plucked out of time, and this was done to him. So Clark's original impression of Jor-El may have been accurate. In fairness to Jor-El, circumstance kind of changed him, right? Where he went through a lot when he got to the point that Clark actually met him this time around. So I'm not saying you give Jor-El what Jor-El became a pass, but you can sit there and go, well, Clark, you're not necessarily wrong for feeling the way you did about your dad back in the day. Well, now we're seeing a circumstance where Clark is questioning his father and questioning, some of his inventions and his usage of them and how fair he was, and is right to do so, right? To look at this stuff objectively. And he's like, I don't know, my willingness to use the Phantom Zone projector now versus before is exponentially different. And I get why. And I loved that part of this because Batman goes to that. The debate's natural because these are two friends who they have respect for each other's philosophies. They know each other operates differently. They have respect for that, but don't always understand it. And I think this story embraced that in their relationship. And you see the discomfort over what they're doing, because what they're doing is a big deal. Putting any creature in the Phantom Zone, you are imprisoning them in a way that's next level. With no access to anything. You're trapping them in a world that, nobody wants to be in for any circumstance. So you're really, this is pushing the button on a very different level. For some people, it's a fate worse than death. And I love that sense of foreboding to the Phantom Zone on this. And even with that, they're not sure that this is going to hold him.
Well, and that's the neat thing about this villain. He's got mega powers beyond anything they've dealt with. Who knows how he's going to react in the Phantom Zone?
Yeah.
Because he's absorbing energy that's being thrown at him. Maybe he will absorb Phantom Zone energy. I don't know. It's, but for right now, that's the best location for this guy. Who knows? Maybe they can eventually get him out, or maybe eventually they can reform, or I don't know. But it is one of those neat things about the Phantom Zone in that it's a prison, but it's even worse than just any other prison. And every time they've ever done stories with the Phantom Zone, you really see the psychological effect it has on the people who are trapped there. So it's, I love that Bruce is, that Clark isn't, just reaching for it every single time. There's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And it's, Bruce who knows there's no other option. This is what we had to do. This is, the only choice we had. And I like seeing that, this debate about them. And even the fact that, even though they used it, and Clark knows they needed to use it, there's still debate between Bruce and Clark about, hey, every single time we've used this, we've had to use it. We're not just, going for, Kite Man, throwing him in there. We're doing the villains that we have to 100% do this. And it's kind of neat because it goes along with the no-kill code. A lot of people say, if Bruce had killed the Joker when he first met him, look at all the bodies that would have not have dropped. But there is that line, yet you never cross the kill code. Well, there's this Phantom Zone line. Never cross the, okay. You don't put people that you don't need to put in there. And I like that notion of it.
Can you do the Kite Man line from before?
Kite Man.
Now, see, I think there's room to debate it now. Let's put him in there.
Throw him in. Well, honestly, Joker. I really do wonder why they've never thrown Joker in there. Because that's somebody who will never reform. There's no reforming of Joker.
But I think it's not just about reforming when you're using the Phantom Zone. There is exhausting every other option. So I think when you look at Sinmar, I think that shows you there's no other way to contain him. Like Joker, you can make an argument you can contain him other ways. Because here's the thing. They throw Joker into Arkham, I'm pretty sure he's going to escape at some point in time, but you can contain him. You know what I mean? And regroup and, hopefully build a better ship. With Sinmar, you can't put him in Arkham and say, we're going to deal with him in like a month. You've got to put him in the Phantom Zone and say, let's talk about him in a month.
Yeah.
Or let's talk during that month about what we're going to do with him. We need some breathing room. And that's what they need right now. They need to contain him so there's some breathing room to figure out what to do with him. It's the interesting thing about the Justice League when you think about the level of threat that they fight. It's the multitasking of trying to get back to talk about this and find another method. That's a challenge for them. There's a lot of responsibility on the Justice League that I think this starts to address. And I think it's really interesting and compelling. That's where this run feels big. And some of my favorite Justice League stories throughout history have felt big like this, where they start to tackle some of those issues. In the meantime, we're setting up potentially their next fight with trading cards, page after page of, I'm Hawkslayer. Yeah. I'm Prince, what is it, Zerup? I'm the Dominator. I'm Divine Q. I mean, these characters, as we're going through them, we're setting up, there's going to be a fight between them next issue, right? Isn't that where this is going? Maybe.
Well, they want the Phantom Zone projector.
Right.
Like, that's too powerful a weapon to be on Earth.
Right.
And, I love the panel because there's the debate going back and forth about, one, the planet someone needs to deal with Samar, because, there's major threat going on from that planet to the universe. And this is the United Planets. So it's not just Earth issues, but also we've got this Phantom Zone protector. They're like, hey, this shouldn't be on Earth. We should be in charge of it. And I love that panel where, like, where they're at final debate where they're like, where the United's like, yeah, we deem it so. And then you got the Justice League standing there with Black Canary. Oh, do you? I love those two panels where I'm like, we're getting a fight, man.
And I want that fight. I mean, I think here's the thing that's been great about this series, build. Build's really important to me when you're dealing with books, any book, right? It's what I like about the most recent Flash run has been, I'm talking about the one right before the current one. I'm not knocking the current one. It just hasn't had enough issues yet to get that vibe, which is normal. I love when you've got longer runs that have like multiple layers to them. Every story's building to something else, and there's this sense of continuity, this sense of growth of characters. You're getting that with this, where we're seeing this growth of this team. It's where when you're saying like, well, Superman's going to be off the team at some point in time. No, I like him here. I like this team. So it's one of those things where I'm starting to really like the team dynamic that we're getting here. So, I think this has been it's a run in a while. I haven't felt protective of Justice League this way. I've always enjoyed Justice League, but there's certain runs where you start to feel protective of the book and feel protective of the team. I'm feeling that way with this book. This lineup is really, really solid. I like during the main battle, too, that when they were going inside for Naomi's family, It's if there's any members of Justice League Dark down there, have them come up. We need them for this. It's I like that everybody needs to be on deck, all hands on deck. I like that about Justice League Dark, that even though it's a co-feature in this, that there's this sense of they're all using the Hall of Justice. And, if the team's there, we need them. I mean, this is a different level. My favorite line is, "Oh, they're like, we deem it so. Oh, do you?" And I love that it was Black Canary that said it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, they're doing a really good job with her throughout these different issues. Really looking forward to the Deathstroke series with her, and I'm assuming Ollie is also in on that. Her, Ollie, and Deathstroke. I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
You think it's just her in Deathstroke?
I think Ollie's in Checkmate. I think she's in this.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think there's a potential for him to guest in it, but I don't think they're a package deal.
Oh, okay, cool.
Wait. I don't know yet.
Knows? I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where you're definitely and again, it's part of the universe continuity that they're doing a really good job with. Because as I said, with Superman leaving, that's eventually going to happen. He's already talking about it in his book. He's getting ready for. He knows he's going to be going away soon. He knows something's going to happen. So he's getting the pieces in line. I think that's part of the reason he wanted Black Adam on the Justice League. One, he saw a change in Adam, and he saw something different. But two, I think he's thinking, when I'm gone, they're going to need a power level. They're going to need his power levels. So I think that's kind of a neat, again, that's one of the cool things about this continuity.
Let's keep talking about Justice League, but morph into a little bit of Justice League Dark, because I think we might jump back to talking about the core, the core regular Justice League team as we discussed. Jim, what's the creative team for Justice League Dark?
We have the writer is Ram V, with artist Sumit Kumar, colorist Romulo, Romulo, and the last name is Fajador Jr., Fajardo. Letters, Rob Lay. Editor is Brittany Holzher. Apologies for name butchering, because this is an absolutely wonderful story and a beautiful book. I'm loving the look. I'm loving the story that's being told. This is one of those really cool things. I wanted to see, how did Merlin get super powerful? Because you have the future state where we see super evil, super powerful, evil Merlin who takes out, all of magic. And how it was really the story ended in a really bad place for the magic users in the world. Where did it get? How did it get to that way? We're seeing that in the Justice League Dark story. And I absolutely love the fact that we have Justice League and Justice League Dark in a single book.
Is Future State inevitable?
No. Future State is not written yet. It's just one possible story that could come out. And again, that's the whole thing, with, the Superman conversation about him going away. Yes, it looks like it's going to happen, but it's not necessarily going to be as horrific as it was in Future State. Same thing with the magic users. Yeah, it's looking right now that magic is starting to do, things aren't starting to go well for magic, but who knows if that's definitely going to be 100% written in stone. Or maybe we're going to get a little bit something different. I don't know. But I love seeing this story lay out. Because it's the same thing with Batman and Fear State. And the future state of Gotham was really horrific. Are we going to definitely 100% get that? I don't know. We're starting to build it, and we're starting to see pieces of the future state come to light, but maybe the Bat family this time can stop it. Same thing with magic. We're seeing really bad stuff going on with magic. Maybe the magic users can fix this. I don't know yet. But I like how I've seen the glimpses of this horrific future, and I'm seeing it kind of play out, but you still don't know 100%. Is it going to go that bad?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting to see what's going on with these characters. There's a real sense of danger when, John's watching Merlin and trying to pick up what's going on, trying to put pause. It's funny part when we talk about John, one of the reasons why you end up loving the character is John's an opportunist. John, on the surface level, looks like, he sometimes puts the mission ahead of people in a very horrific way, where it's, I've got to stop this, I've got to do that, and you're the sacrificial lamb for making this happen. And that greater, not always great or good. Just that desire for that thing to pay off the way that it needs to drives John's motivations. Every so often you see this heroism, though, where, like, John can die here. You know, and John knows it. He can die facing off against Merlin, and he is trying to stop Merlin to buy time. John knows he can't win. That's interesting when you walk into a fight knowing you can't win, yet you go into the fight anyway because you know I can delay things. I can hold things off, and hopefully the people that I have faith in that do have the power can, whether I'm still around or not, can make it here in enough time to make a real difference in this. It's an interesting philosophy, and I really enjoy that about this because there's a heroism to that, or a bravery in that. Well, it's heroism because he knows Merlin doing this is bad. You know, and it's really going to ruin everything for everyone. So there's a hero. It's worth saying it's a hero. There's times where John is heroic, and yet he would not consider himself, and nor I don't know that we should consider him to be a cut and dry hero.
Well, and I call it my Alamo situation, you know, because in the Battle of the Alamo, they knew there was no chance they were going to win. Right. There was absolutely no chance whatsoever. They knew, and that was the thing. If they would have left, they would have all lived, but they wouldn't have slowed down the army, and Texas would no longer be Texas. It would be part of Mexico. You know, so they knew we've got to slow them down. Every day we keep them here, we're slowing down the army, and we're letting Texas build up their defenses so they can hold off the army. And it's one of those true heroic moments where they're like, okay, here's the deal, folks. If you stay, you die. Anyone who doesn't want to stay, we understand. We won't think any less of you. And they stayed. And they're like, no, we're going to fight. And it's one of those really cool moments of a hero when you look in the eyes of death and you say, this is it. I'm okay with this. John has these moments. And right here is definitely one of those moments where he's like, I know I can't beat him. All I can do is hope that Z gets here in time. And I love that realization when, as he's fighting him, that grin on his face, once he knows Z's here. And that was like, I love seeing those two work together. I love that, that pairing of Constantine and Zatanna. Because that's just, again, that's a great story that they've laid out over time.
Yeah, I agree. It's something where this story, you're right, laid out over time, laid out in future state, first of all, but then we got to see it laid out in this series. And I used the term co-feature. I don't know. I don't care what we call these doggone things. I think what's making them work right now is you've got the same quality of creative team on both of the features in this book right now. I think what's happening back here is very complementary to what's going on in the main story. This is a perfect marriage of two different stories going on in the same book. They're both team books. They don't feel like, one doesn't feel like a light version of the other. They're very unique and very compelling. And that has continued. Like, every issue has been a page-turner with this. And there's been a couple of times where, just because of other reading I'm doing, I've gotten a couple issues behind on Justice League. I like reading it better that way, if it makes any sense. Like, it's fun to read like a couple of these together. And in preparation for this, I actually went back to the beginning of the run and read the issues leading up to this, just because it was fun. There's a lot going on in both stories, and it was fun to kind of go back through and just re-experience the whole thing. And I did that for pleasure, because I didn't really need, I knew what was going on. It wasn't, because, hey, I need a refresher as far as what's going on here. I just wanted to. That was great to just kind of go back and reread this for pleasure and not do it for a reason where I'm like, all right, I'm confused. Let me go back. I'm like, this is just a good read.
Yeah, I know.
What a great reason. This Ram V is, Bendis, kind of goes without saying, you have a certain expectation for what you're going to get from Bendis, and Bendis is delivering. So we're getting that from Bendis and the creative team on the Justice League book proper. This Ram V, I don't know why I didn't know this name before, like, this recent DC work. I don't, that's another one where it's like, I want to know who Ram V is and more of this stuff, because this is really, really good.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in all the cool stuff going on with Zatanna, with John, yes, that's awesome. But I do love just the army of the undead is coming at them. They're lining up, getting ready, and what's Aquaman do? He calls in every possible shark and orca he can think of. And I love that scene where he's like, Etrigan's getting ready to throw some bodies around, have a little good old fun time. And he's like, my apologies, demon, but this one will have to be quick. Atlantis is at risk, and we don't have time to be playing around. And I just love that look of him, and just that look in Aquaman's face as he's getting ready. And he's got this army of sharks coming right behind him. I absolutely love that.
During that whole process, let's not just Zatanna and John. We have to talk about Zatanna and Ragman.
Yeah.
Because I really liked that relationship. He knows there's something going on with her powers, too. He's taking a different approach. He's called her out on it, not for the purpose of hurting her. Called her out on it, offering support. I'm here for you. I will help you. This is what teammates do. And you can do this. We need you right now. We need the level of power you've got because you're it. We've got to do this. I know why you don't want to go. You can't debate this with Aquaman right now. We have to do this. I'm going with you. I'll have your back. I loved that moment. I thought it was really, really good because framed up in this moment you're talking about with Aquaman, couldn't agree with you more. You want this sense of Zatanna's going to go there and this is going to be badass. And it's going to be. I wanted to see that. Yeah. And seeing Ragman there adds another layer to it because John has confidence in her. It's like, you're right. I can't do this. I barely stand a chance to get you. I know it. But you might find that she's a bit more up to the task. And when she shows up, the look of determination on her face, I love Zatanna. I have always loved Zatanna. And going back to my childhood and seeing this character now and how she's evolved, and this could not be a better vehicle for her. That ending, seeing her ready, I want to see Zatanna versus Merlin next issue, just as much as I want to see everything going on in the main story. So there's 2 pending battles that are going to be happening next issue. I can't wait for issue 68. I am super excited for issue 68 of Justice League.
Well, she's got the evil black eyes going on because she's got that issue with her and the upside down man inside her that he keeps popping up if she uses her powers too much. But just that look on her face where she's got, as I said, she's got the evil eyes going, and then she's crackle and burn. I'm like, oh, this is not just going to be a pleasant little fight. She's opening up, and it's going to be kind of really cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens here. It's really a great buildup. This is how you tell stories long form, right? It's every issue has built to this point, and that build has made these moments mean more than you would have if you would have done this in a shorter time span. I feel like this has had the right pacing, the right breathing room to get to this point, and that matters. It's really great to see the work that's coming out of DC right now, when a year ago we were panicked. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So it's great to see this right now. I'm really happy for the creators that are making it at a time where I think it's a challenge in comics, right? To make noise. I think these creators are doing a great job of delivering home runs because it is a tougher time. The pandemic has made it harder, I think, to get out there and get the word out about your books. Because I do think there's a boots on the ground component that is really needed with comics. Just as much as you need to embrace today's need virtually. I think Fandom and New York Comic Con and things like that doing virtual events, pretty critical. And that's not just because of the pandemic. I think to reach you're going to reach a different audience with that. But by the same token, to round off the audience you need to reach, you do need that physical. When you go to a convention and you're shopping around and you see things multimedia, right? You get interested. You're not the gamer I am. Let's throw that out there. But when you're on a comic book convention floor and you see people showcasing something that interests you in that medium, you're going to perk up and be more interested in it than you would have been if you had just seen an online trailer. Because you're there with other people who are like-minded. And you're sitting there going, oh, wow, that is kind of cool. I know that because I've been with you at conventions where you're saying that about things where you're not the target audience, but you're that casual audience that are looking at that and going, oh, I might want to check that out. And it may lead to that. And if there's a portion of the audience that's there where you're like, well, 25% of the people that are saying that are actually going to jump on board, that's a success. Because they're people you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, right? You've now reached out to your target audience that was there to see it, and you've grabbed a few other people that are going to be word of mouth spreading it to an audience that you wouldn't have touched previously. That's a cool part of conventions, and I'm glad to see just different outreach right now, because I think any media like comics are struggling right now with trying to reach a new and unique audience. And I'm excited for where things are going. If we can get over this hurdle, we got a bump we got to get over right now. If we can get over that, I think we're in for some exciting times.
Yeah, it's every year. We always say every year that the doomsday clock comes out about comic books and comic book shops and this and that and whatnot, and it's still around. We're still around. We're still here, and we're still getting new people. And I think that's the key. How do you get new people? Now, conventions are absolutely wonderful for getting new people. That's a great way to bring in the next generation. You get somebody who shows up to the convention because of video games or because of movies and TVs, and they see some comic thing, and maybe that gets them interested and that pulls them into the comic universe. Someone goes to a comic shop because of, whatever, draws them in. Maybe they try something else. Maybe they see something else. The virtual stuff with, Comixology, they keep having that thing where they suggest titles to you based on your previous purchases. And I've gone through and I've bought some of this stuff. And some of the times they're really spot on. I'm like, hey, you know what? You're right. I'm enjoying this. Sometimes they're off, But it's, new ways to get new people interested on new titles, new, media, new, it's your existing fan base is a fan base that you're supporting, but you always got to keep bringing in the next generation, and I think that's the big issue with not having these cons, because the cons were a great way to bring in the next generation. Well, this current generation is okay with video. They're okay with, online stuff. So maybe these virtual cons will work for them the way the traditional floor con worked for us.
I agree. I think that's going to be the interesting piece, is seeing what works for what audiences nowadays. I think you want to get a bigger reach with these. So I'm hoping all of this, I guess, works out in a positive way, for maybe opening it up. There's things that are coming out of the pandemic. We talk about all the negative. It's good to see that there's some things coming out of this that I do think are going to be positives. And the comic shops are the ones I most worry about right now, because of the fact that comic shops have to get over the financial hurdle of this right now. And I say that really, really respecting the fact that there's got to be comic shops that are hurting right now. We hear all the time about shops that are closing, and my heart goes out to them, because I love comic shops. It's one of the things whenever I go, my wife and I travel anywhere, it's where she's patient. I've always got to go into any form of comic or toy shop. And I throw toy shops in there too, because there's a lot of toy shops that are toy shops / the comic shop, where they've got diverse, or gaming shops and things like that have a diverse lineup of product as a way to keep a steady enough audience that you can keep the shop open. I want to see those continue. So I applaud anybody who's struggling through this right now with any kind of business and trying to make it, because it's interesting times. You referenced it earlier, and I think it's very true. People are at very different comfort levels on what they will go out for and where they will go into. And a lot of it is due to the nuances of what their situation is, who they're interacting with on a regular basis, what their family situation, what their own personal situation is right now. And it's not cookie cutter. Here's the thing, you and I have known each other for years. We have a lot in common, but our own unique personal health and family situations are very different right now. So that has led to a very divergent path right now on where we are at comfort level wise with the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 110% complete validity to both situations. So it's, I've never, God, I hope I've always been, anytime we've gotten together now since the pandemic's gone on, but I hope I've always been supportive in the sense that, dude, let's do this how it's comfortable for you. I think you've got to do that right now with people. Out of respect, you got to realize that your way of thinking and what feels right to you is not the same situation for everybody. And I'm hoping for comic shops and places like that they survive this. I love creativity of doorside pickup and things like that stores are putting in place. And that's not easy, because I was at a pizza place yesterday that I love and had to wait like an extra 20 minutes to pick up my pizza. And I was late to pick up my pizza. So it was really about a good 30 minutes or so extra standing there waiting for my pizza because they were short-staffed because they can't get people right now. So it's interesting the time that we're in right now that places are struggling with limited staff, either because they can't get people or financially they can't afford to employ people to maintain the way of operating right now, because you have to operate differently right now with curbside pickup and delivery and different things that are going on. The places of business are being expected, in order to survive, to do and offer services they were never equipped to handle before, with either the same or fewer resources. And in some cases, less amounts of product to draw people in to get there. You know what I mean? So, because if you want to draw people out of their homes to the point where they're like, I've got to have this, there's got to be those compelling things. And it's a challenge right now. So I applaud anybody out there who's struggling business-wise, and urge you that if you're able to get out and support comic shops, if you're able to get out and support local business in general, do so in ways that are safe and make sense for you and the people that you care about. In that scenario, because there's not a simple answer to any of that.
No, there's not, and you always have been cool with us, because you are who you are, Sean. You're awesome. So let's be honest there. And
wait, hold on, Jim, stop right there. Let's talk more about me.
But the point I was going to go on this is, it's one of those things where you and I look at life a little differently, and actually not differently. There's a lot of people who think how we think, mm-hmm. where we're like, we've got our opinion, but we're not going to count out if somebody else differs. Where you run into the issues are the people who are like, my way is the only way. Like, no, it's not, dude. Relax, and it's on both sides of this whole debate with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We've got the hardcore anti-vaxxers, we got the hardcore vaxxers, and it's, we all got to relax. We got to do what we're comfortable with, but two, we got to think about everybody else. It's, yes, you've got your hardcore opinion, you've got your belief, and I'm not going to tell you it's wrong, but you got to look and respect somebody else's opinion. And that's a general rule on anything in life. Not everybody's going to agree with you, and they've got a right to have a different opinion. And it's very difficult. And I can see, and I'm sitting there saying, hey, it's easy. No, it's not. It's 100% hard to accept somebody who's dramatically different than you mm-hmm. has their own valid opinion. And you can even go, and there's a lot of different ways, not just talking about the vaccine, about other areas, and it's very difficult to accept somebody else's opinion as, yes, you have the right to have it. I have the right to fervently disagree with you. And that's the hardest part about, dealing with everything in life, is that balance of, accepting and being understanding other people, but also to stand your ground on this is the right thing to do. If you're going to sit here and say, I believe I have a right to walk around and punch anybody I want. No, you don't. I will argue that point with you because guess what? That's assault. So it's illegal. But if you want to go around and not wear a mask, well, guess what? You have that right to not wear a mask. Unless the rules start changing and the laws start changing once again, and there's these mandates about mandatory masking, then you're free to do what you want. But when you get that place that says, no, we're mandating masks, guess what? Now that's the mandate. So it's a tough call. And I wish I had a better answer. I wish I could say, all we got to do is blank and everything's done. But that blank doesn't exist. There is no quick fix to this. This is going to take time and patience and understanding to get through it.
I think one of the areas where it's been interesting over the years is when you look at our friendship group, and we're all an interesting cast of characters, right? And we don't get a chance to hang out in the configuration that we used to, but we used to hang out in a much larger configuration. But one of the things I've always valued about those friendships are, I think they help round you off as a person when you know that there's such, you and I actually do. It's funny, we have a lot of similarities that I think at the core have made us friends all this time. But I also think one of the things that is the draw to the friendship is the fact that the respect of the differences. I actually enjoy doing this podcast every week because it's no fun if you go on the show and the person that you're talking to is saying the exact same things. We may agree on a book and both like it, but we usually like things for very different reasons and often feel extremely different about the events and where they're leading and why they got there. And that part's fun. I mean, and it comes from the fact that we have different backgrounds and we're informed by that. So when you read a story, where you're coming from, a lot of times comes from who you are, what you've been exposed to, and assumptions that you're making because of it. Even reading that you've done leading up to it. But I think there's something to be learned from that as far as just interacting with others too. It doesn't have to be my way or the highway. You can defend your position as being valid and not lose anything by understanding and respecting the other position. And I think it's something I always try to work on. We've had some really hefty debates on the show over the years where they've been insane over things that why are we taking this aggressive a position on this as far as the different arguments that we've had over the years on the show. But you notice we don't have those as much anymore because it's more of a interchange of different opinions. We'll talk about where we disagree, because we often do, on things we're speculating on, which is a lot of fun. I think there's something to be said, though, about in this time in general, because I think it's harder to do now, because you're sometimes forced now to make a decision and take a side, and on things that I'm like, why are we taking side? Isn't it okay that there are other opinions out there? Can't we just be all right with that? I don't know. I don't need everyone to agree with me. I don't know that I always agree with me. So it's interesting. But I long for the days where we get some sense of what normal's going to be. And I was hoping that by this time, because it looked good at the beginning of summer, right? We were having conversations where I honestly think at the beginning of summer, we were starting to have conversations about maybe going to a convention, maybe doing something like that. And I think, with the variant coming back up, I'm not gloom and doom about it. So for people that are listening, they're like, guys, put it in perspective. I don't think either of us are gloom and doom about it. I think it's more of the how do we handle what the current status of things are. And it needs to look very different because of it. I'm sad, though, because I think I would have already had booked New York Comic Con and Wizard World Chicago if things had been different right now. And because of work, it would have been one of those, the conversation would have been, I don't know if I can go because of this. I've got it booked, but I don't know if I can go. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with Outpost Gallifrey, with Gallifrey 1, my first Gallifrey 1 that I'm going to. And anybody listening to this, if you are out there and you're a Doctor Who fan and you're going to be at Gallifrey 1, feel free to shoot me a message. I would love to meet you. I mean, so if you're going to be there and you want to hang out, I'm going alone. So it's one of those things where my wife right now, because of her different work schedule, I'm not going to have her take days for a Doctor Who convention to go with me. It's not the first time I've flown alone to a convention and won't be the last. I really want to go to a Doctor Who convention, and I just know I'm going to hook up with people there because you're in a big place with people who are like-minded. But if you listen to this podcast and you're going to the Gallifrey 1 convention in February, I'm going unless something happens. So I'd love to meet you. So if you're looking for somebody to hang out with at the convention, I'm raising my hand and come right here. So it'll be fun to meet somebody who listens to the show and, that way. So I long for the time when you and I can have that
as you said earlier, we were talking about going to cons, and I was looking at cons. Heck, I was going to go to Italy for an extended time, and that actually has gotten canceled because of all the stuff going on with this variant. That's the European Union is really starting to react to America, the numbers that are going on in America, and there's certain countries that have started to call the U.S. a no-fly zone. So by time that trip would have come around, there's a good chance I wouldn't have been able to get into the country. So it's one of those situations where I'm like, I had to cancel that one, and now I'm looking at the cons. I'm like, I as I said before, if I were to get something and bring it back and get my dad sick, I'd never forgive myself, because Dad's in one of those medical situations where he gets this, he may not make it. He's got a heart and lung condition.
Yeah.
So he's one of those who's on the thing. So he and I are very careful what we do, where we go. We're always masked up when we go somewhere. And we go to restaurant. We got a couple restaurants we go to. We walk in there, we're the only ones wearing a mask. And everyone looks at us like, hey, when we sit down for food, we take our masks off. But while we're walking there, while we're walking through the restaurant, all that stuff, we've got our masks on just because it's, we're taking any caution we can. And, we try not even to do the restaurant thing, and, we do the grocery store thing. But it's, again, we have all those precautions that we take to try to keep us safe. So it's tough.
So let's wrap up with this. I think when it comes to talking about conventions, we have some virtual options that are out there. So I think it'd be fun to talk about, in light of the fact that we both have reasons, either health or professionally related, that are keeping us from being able to go to some of these conventions we want to go to. Let's take a look at the virtual New York Comic Con. Let's take a look at Fandom virtually, and let's do some coverage on the show about it and talk about that experience in comparison to a regular convention. Share the news, get the excitement, and just how it feels to be able to explore these options now. And how do we like the opportunity to be able to go? I think New York Comic Con will be one. We haven't been able to talk about a virtual New York Comic Con experience. Let's talk about that. Let's go ahead and explore that on the show. And if anything, there's going to be a lot of DC news that I want to talk about in that light. So I want that to be the main focus. But there'll be some natural comparisons to being there. And how does this feel in comparison to that? Honestly, the excitement for me will be the opportunity to talk about it. Talk about what news is coming out, what kind of things we can get excited about over the next year and beyond. Because we know some of the things that they're going to announce may not necessarily be a year away. They may be teasers for things that are 2 years away or beyond. So it'd be fun to talk about some of those things. I know I have a wish list as we go into it. I think as we get closer, maybe we'll do like a short segment on what we're hoping for from Fandom. As we get in kind of an idea of what Fandom's going to be. And because I know it's going to be different than last year already, if they're talking about like a 4-hour cycle, it's going to be different than last year. So, because it was longer than 4 hours last year, if I remember correctly. So I think it'd be fun to kind of get an idea of what Fandom's really going to be, and then we can talk about what we're hoping for from it. And I think New York Comic Con, is it safe to assume that, like, now that you know there's a virtual element to it, you're interested in participating in that?
Yeah, I'll be doing the virtual New York Comic Con.
So let's plan to talk about the DC news coming out of New York Comic Con then on the show, because I love doing those segments when you and I have gone to cons. So let's do it on the virtual. And we'll have some fun on the show talking about conventions now.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of our show. As a matter of fact, we got a voicemail queued up for our next episode. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our show email address. Great way to reach us. RagingBullets.com is our show website. We're going to find news on the upcoming episodes. It does feed into Twitter and our Facebook fan page. We are also proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community. So please feel free to join us up over there. That's where I go for my news now. It really is. I mention on the show all the time, but the people there are constantly posting about blogs relating to DC and everything relating to comics and pop culture, gaming, movies, film, whatever. It's a safe, fun zone where people share their reactions in a way that's supportive and talk about differing opinions. We get a lot of differing opinions over there all the time, and I love it. It's a great, safe conversation zone. So thank you, everyone there, for just maintaining that high standard of being a safe place to talk. The About Us section of our show website is the way to find out details on how to connect with us through social media and gaming platforms. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the All-Star Superman Deluxe Edition hardcover, 50% off, only $17.49. And we have the Anointed Sandman hardcover, Volume 1, also 50% off, only $24.99. Thank you, DCBS.
InStockTrades.com. Reminder, Batman Black and White hardcover, $49.99 regularly, 42% off, only $28.99. Batman hardcover, Volume 4, The Cowardly Lot, $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. The Fourth World by Jack Kirby Omnibus hardcovers getting a new printing, $150 regularly, 42% off, only $87. Thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim and I are back, and we're going to talk about the monumentally cool hardcover Batman the World. We will see you then.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't
What
mean
are you
anything
trying
by
to
that.
say? I think
Sean,
you're getting right
Jim,
I don't know.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.